Lots of college football playoff buzz coming on the heels of the spring meetings in Destin. Where does Clark Lea stand?
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. And on this episode, we're going to explore all possibilities for the college football playoff. That was quite the topic in Destin, and we know where Greg Sankey stands, but where does Clark Lea stand? Does he want the 5-11? Does he want the 4-4-2, 4-3-3-3-1? Sounds like a soccer formation, but we're going to know for certain that he's excited to have Diego Pavia back. That's for sure. But as far as the college football playoffs format, we're going to find out, right? And then we're going to wrap the show by discussing another disappointing regional exit for the Vandy boys. What happened? They were the number 1 overall seed. They come out of Hoover completely on fire. Did it fizzle out? I don't know. We're going to explore it, though. Anyway, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers, and however you guys got here, thank you for being a part of the show. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, speaking of Monarch Money, speaking of money in general, the winter meetings had quite the buzz, or not winter meetings, but the spring meetings down in Destin had quite the buzz. And a lot of it was about money, and a lot of it was about what's going to happen with these playoffs, right? Because that's the biggest thing when you're looking at money and resource distribution and things like that. You get these TV deals from the college football playoff. And obviously, we know where Greg Sankey stands. If you listen to last Monday's episode, we talked about how he wanted there to be 4 automatic bids for the SEC. Now, whether or not the SEC follows through with that, I think it's going to happen. But you know what? It gets me wondering, like, where does Clark Lea stand on this? Like, how do the individual coaches feel about this new format? Because, like, there's benefits to both. I think there's benefits to letting the system you drew out play out, but there's also benefits to, when it comes to resources and fairness, having the automatic slots for the 2 biggest conferences and understanding that, you're going to get 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten, and you kind of cap it there. And then, your 2 at-larges will kind of play themselves out. And if they end up being SEC teams, so be it. And then the Big 12 and ACC, they get 2 apiece. So you're going to be well represented, all of that stuff. But what did Clark Lea have to say about it? And here's the first thing he had to say about it. It was one of those. When I read his quote, and this was reported through via Vandy 247, but when I read the quote, I was kind of thrown off, right? And he said this, and this was a long quote. He said, "Go back to can we be?" He was asked about the new proposals. Go back to can we be competitive for as many spots as we possibly can. He would go on to say, "I would also say, just like anything, that the conditions continue to shift on this. There are new ideas being formed." And I ran out of real estate, really. But he said, "I think part of the challenge is we have to have a point where the new ideas cease and we take the ones we have to depth and play them out and see what works best. So I want to hold a little room there to be able to adjust and adapt to that opinion. But coming out of the spring meetings as a competitor, I'd love to see him just go 1-16, have a great formula for delivering what the 16 best teams are and let it rip. But to me, the 5-11 gives us the most opportunities to compete for spots, and I think that's a great thing." So, I think Clark Lea just wants it to be competitive. I think he wants the competitive balance to be there. I think he wants as many opportunities for his team, which would be coming after one of those at-large bids. He wants more at-large bids so that, like, it's just kind of random. I think this quote also says he's flexible and he just wants something that they feel like they can stick with. And so he's kind of open to a lot of ideas, but like what's really best for Vanderbilt. And that's kind of what he's concerned about. What is the best opportunity for Vanderbilt to get those spots? And, I want you guys to comment as well. Do you like the 5-11? Do you like the 4-4-2-2-1? What do you guys prefer as far as automatic bids? Do you like the current model? The seeding model I think is changing, obviously, but like the current bids, like do you like what's happening with the current bids and just kind of let it play out? But I think at some point he's right about that. At some point, you just got to have something and stick with it and quit tinkering and changing just to tinker and change just because, there's a little bit of backlash here. Yeah, there's a couple of tweaks you could have, but like for the most part, I think in this next round, you need to find something that you like. Okay. And here's what he said, continuing on about that. And I really kind of like his stance on it. Like I think he's trying to find the most opportunities for Vanderbilt. And I think honestly, he's going to come to like my opinion on this is he's going to come to like the 4-4-2-2-1 because I think you're going to have more chances to get a lot of SEC teams in. Because I think at the end of the day, there's going to be SEC teams that finish in at-large spots outside of the 4 auto bids where your highest ranked teams are SEC teams. And so it may end up working itself out nonetheless. But here's what he continued to say. He said, "We learned a year ago, right now, the way it is, every loss counts." He said, "Playing a 9th game, there's a reason to do that just from having another quality game on the schedule. But we want to make sure in doing that, there's awareness that whether it's a quality win or quality loss, it's going to have a positive impact on the way we're judged in selection for the playoffs." And I think what he's wanting to say, and I think this quote, honestly, I think he likes the idea of the 5-11, but also when you're going to select it, to me, this sounds like he wants it to be fair and he wants it. He wants strength of schedule, which I agree with him. If this quote kind of points in that direction, like you want to get a quality game on your schedule so that you can be better, like the Virginia Tech game, or if you take one of those like Utah State or Georgia State out and add a 9th conference game, like that's a quality game, that's a quality schedule. There's no incentive to do that right now, and I think that kind of takes away from college football. So to me, it's got to be a situation to where you just got to get the best format. And the best format, honestly, if you go 4-4-2-2-1, that's going to be the best format for what he's trying to say here. Because I think in that format, you're going to be able to, start to get those metrics of strength of schedule. You're going to start to get those quality games on the schedule. And a loss is not necessarily going to kill you. I mean, you don't want to lose in any format, but there's quality losses. They're going to look at the resume like, hey, they played a hell of a schedule. They lost this game close. They won this game. Like, how many quality wins do you have? And if it's close, what does your losses look like? Did you take a really bad loss? Like Alabama in a quality loss would not have. I mean, they got ripped apart by Oklahoma. So I think that would have done them in this year. But there's just got to be situations to where there's got to be some rewards for playing a tough schedule, win or lose, if it's close. Now, if you're like 8-4 and the highest, there's 10 other teams ranked ahead of you, your quality losses don't really mean much. But if it's close and it comes down to it, I think you have to, when you're judging those spots, when you're judging outside of those metrics, if you go to the 5-11 model, if you're judging, you have to judge these at-large bids based on that 9th game, based on quality of schedule. And honestly, I think the cleanest way to do it is just to give more auto bids so that it makes that process cleaner. And then you only have to do that for like 2 teams for like 2 spots instead of like 11 spots. and you have to, and it gets a little bit less tricky. It gets a little bit less subjective, and you've got some formats that win. But for Clark Lea, he just wants what's best for Vanderbilt. He's all in favor of whatever is best for the conference, whatever is best for his program, and to be honest, whatever's best for all of that. But if you stick around, I'll tell you what's best for his program, getting Diego Pavia back. And he's very, very excited about it. And I'll tell you why he should be excited about that next. All right, but first, here's what you should be excited about. Monarch Money, because guess what? No more wondering, where the heck did all my money go? Why did I spend it on takeout? Why did I spend it on going to the movies or going to Topgolf or wherever? Online shopping on any of those vendors. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO. They give you full visibility and control over your finances. Who doesn't want that? Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Go figure. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And when I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on takeout. Man, now I budget smarter and I save more because of Monarch. And instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check all of my finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing money with my partner and managing money with your partner is going to be smoother than ever for you. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals, and you can stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you, everydayers, and thank you for making us part of your day and however you got here. Thank you for getting here, and if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. But if you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Locked On Ole Miss, both Steve Willis and Chris Gordy, respectively, give all of their insights and perspectives on the SEC, and Steve specifically on the Ole Miss Rebels. So check them out. It's worth the listen right after you finish with me. All right. Also tell a friend to come back. Bring a friend back with you next time you come this way. So in the comments, man, we talked about college football proposals, formats, things like that. What do you think is best for Vanderbilt? Leave that in the comments. Is the 511 or the 44221? Right? What do you think is best for Vanderbilt? We know what's probably best for the conference, but what's best for Vanderbilt? What gives them the best chance? Is Clark Lea right in the 511 gives them the most opportunities? However, Clark Lea does. I think Clark Lea, he sees the positives in both. And I think it's worth noting that there are a lot of positives in both models. So it's a lot of fun to debate, but whatever they come up with, hey, I'm all for it. Let's go. Let's stick with it, though. That's what I want. Just stick with it and let's roll. All right. Speaking of, well, not really. His impact, he said this about Diego Pavia, also at the spring meetings. Very excited about getting this guy back, and I understand why. He said his impact, I can't overstate. We got to know enough about him in college football, in the college football community, to know that he's special. He's a quiet connector. His competitive swagger and confidence is part of the draw to him. Excited to have him back, right? Diego Pavia. That's the if you want to. There's two words to describe this whole quote. You can sum it up with two words: Pavia factor. It's the Pavia factor, man. Like, I talked about it with Juwan, talked about it with Kurt Page. I've talked about it probably ad nauseum more than you probably want to hear me talk about it. But this guy right here is the dude, man. His swagger, his confidence is, and I talked to Juwan about this last week, that not only does he affect the offense, but he affects the defense as well. He affects special teams, and everybody's got that more aggressive, confident swagger. And those guys just want to go out and make plays for him. Defensively, they want to go. Hey, those guys are like, hey, let's get off the field as fast as we can. Let's give two another shot. Let's give Diego football another shot. at possessing this ball. We got to give our quarterback some opportunities here. And that's just the kind of draw he has to him, man. He's, like I said, he's a special kind of leader. Having him back on this team is going to be absolutely special for this group. And I think you're going to see that getting him back allows, the benefits of this, it allows the team to kind of build one more year within this offense. I think they were on the right track last year, but had they had to have another quarterback this season, I think you would have seen that growth stunted a little bit. But I think having these guys around, having this stable of quarterbacks learn just one more year under Diego Pavia, it allows Tim Beck to expand the offense a little bit into more than just basic year one stuff. I think you can advance and grow the offense. Berlowitz knows the offense. He comes in as quarterback too. Now you're starting to get these guys to see the nuances of it, right? And yeah, you've got new offensive line. I mean, you probably will get a lot of your lineman replacements from the portal, and that's okay. That's just kind of the way of the world now. And you got a new receiving core, which, I mean, you kind of needed it, right? So I think getting those guys involved early on, I think that'll set the tone for recruiting. That'll set the tone for what this program does kind of going forward. Now, I don't anticipate this, but if for some reason they sputter, this will give us the answers that we need. If for some reason they explode, that will also give us the answers that we need to see if Clark Lea, Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, if that experience is worth having around or not. And this is kind of the kind of the make or break year for that. And having Diego Pavia back in your arsenal, along with Eli Stowers, having those two guys back on your offense, I think it gives you a great chance to not only have a really successful season, but I think that kind of gives you a stronger foundation to build your program. And so having that kind of confidence, it radiates through the entire team. Brandon Fontenet's that way. Langston Patterson, Junior Sherrill, Jordan White will be that way. These offensive linemen, they're going to build quite the community with this team. And you're going to see this group. You already saw from 23 to 24, they had to replace a ton of people. It was a mass exodus. A lot of people thought Clark Lea, his seat was red hot, and a lot of people thought he was just going to go bounce right on off of that seat, and it was going to be a new coach. So they didn't want to be around for that transition. Well, that didn't happen. So from 24 to 25, you didn't lose too much. And a lot of guys you thought would bounce to the portal didn't. A lot of guys you thought, like Drew Dickey, like I thought he was, as soon as he lost out to Berlowitz, I was like, Dickey's out. And I would not have blamed him one bit. Go get your starting job, go get your role, go find you somewhere, right? And he didn't. Now he'll probably end up grad transferring. I think he wants that degree, which I don't blame him for that either. But guys that I thought would leave did not leave, and that shows a lot of things. Like I think this community, this family, this program, I think is a very comfortable place for people. I think there's a lot of opportunities post football for these guys, and some of the guys that are staying understand that they're probably not going to be playing on Sundays. And when they graduate from Vanderbilt, they're probably done with football, and they want to be set up for life, whether it's they want to stay in the game in a different fashion or get that degree and go run a company, whatever the case may be. Like, these guys are seeing value in this program, and that is a huge deal. They're seeing value. Like, Diego Pavia fought to stay with this coaching staff. That tells you what you need to know about this coaching staff. Now, he's getting some good NIL money, so that could play a part in it. But all in all, I think there's a lot of evidence there to show that this program is very, very comfortable for a lot of people. So, I agree with Coach Lea on this statement, right? I'm excited to have him back. Pavia factor. That's what that is. Pavia factor. So, speaking of a group that needed the Pavia factor, that needed a little bit of confidence and swagger, they didn't get it. And now they're going to be watching now they're going to be preparing to go to the Cape Cod League or summer ball or wherever they scatter off to. It's the Vandy boys. They got bounced. We'll talk about it next. All right, wrapping up the show. Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. Like and subscribe if you enjoy what you heard. Leave some feedback. Leave some comments. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, I gave you guys an assignment: 5'11" or 4'4", 221. College football playoff format. 5'11" is not my height. I'm shorter than that. But anyway, what is your format? How excited on a scale of 1 to 10, 15 being the highest, are you getting the thoughts of getting Diego Pavia back? How excited are you? I'm very excited. All right, but very disappointing for the Vandy boys. I'll be honest. I'll be frank. It's very disappointing that you get the number 1 overall seed and you essentially lay an egg. It's not, I mean, you can't really explain it. You can sit here, you can break down every nuance, but ultimately they just weren't focused. Ultimately, it just seemed like they were satisfied. They were full after the SEC championship. They were just, they lacked that killer instinct. They lacked that grit, that toughness, that togetherness that they had up until this point. I think that walk-off game against Wright State where Riley Nelson snuck it inside the foul pole, like you have to you get no hit through 7 innings against Wright State to lead off the regionals. Like, that's not a good thing. I'm glad they hit 3 home runs to win that, because you get bounced after 2 games in a row as the number 1 overall seed. That's even worse. But it takes 3 games instead of 2 to get bounced. But to me, like, this elimination game, they just look checked out. It just, I don't understand. Like, I know baseball's a up and down sport, and I know, it just seemed like they weren't all in. It just seemed like that they thought they could waltz in and just win this because they're their number 1 overall seed. Like, we got this. We can let the foot off the gas. We can make plans for Omaha. Like, they were feeling themselves a little bit too much. That's what it comes down to. And the mental focus was not there. And they got burned. And when they turned it on, it was too late. Rustin Rigdon could have got him out of that jam if his ball bounced 3 feet lower, because it would have gone off the wall. Mancini would have scored easily. Those are the breaks, man. When you're not focused, when you're not doing the things you should be, you don't get those breaks, right? Those breaks don't come to you. Those breaks come to teams who are prepared to win. And the baseball gods just said, Vandy, we're just going to put you out of your misery, man, because you're going to lose tonight against Louisville because you're just not there. You're just not in it, right? That's what was going to happen. They just weren't in it. And here's my takeaways. All right, the management of the pitching staff was questionable. You leave yourself in a situation where Austin Nye, a true freshman who's pitched 4 quality innings against an SEC team, you put him in an elimination game. It's not fair to him. He's a true freshman. He was not ready for that kind of pressure. I don't care how good he pitched in the SEC tournament. He was not ready for that situation. And you throw out Fennell against Louisville. Where's your bullpen at, man? Like Luke Guth and Miller Green, and you have to manage your pitching staff a little bit better than that. And I know he's won 2 College World Series, right? But I get it. But it's okay to question, like, it's okay to hold him accountable for. I mean, he made a mistake. I mean, I don't think he intentionally screwed it up. I don't think he said, "Hey, I'm going to screw over my team here." I honestly think he had a lot of faith. He had too much faith. His mistake was he had too much faith in Austin Nye in that situation that he was not ready for. And I love Austin Nye. The guy is a warrior. The guy pitched that guy did a hell of a job this season. He was one of the best pitchers, and he's going to be a stud. But when you put him in a situation that he's not ready for, he got beat up in the first inning against Wright State and an elimination game, and that just derailed the team. Like, the team, I thought, was checked out for the next 8 2/3 innings. I really do. Like, they were just, they lost the game right there. He gives up 5 in the first inning. They lost the game right there. The team did not rally. They were checked out. They had Wright State was throwing Wright State through the first 7 innings of both games they played. Vandy gave up 1 hit. Through 7 innings in their first 2 games, they gave up 1 hit. Combined. 14 innings. The first 14 innings of their matchup. So the first 7 and the first 7. They gave up 1 hit. That's pitiful. It's pitiful. All right, hitting was terrible. Worst slump of the season. Approach at the plate was awful. It just seemed lackadaisical. It just seemed like they were, I know the whole thing of, hey, let's be ourselves and all that stuff, and that's great. But at some point, you got to lock in. And it just didn't seem like they were locked in. And hammer me on, it just did not seem they were locked in, right? They did not. They knew, like, if you have a guy that's not ready for that spotlight, and he proves it to you by giving up 5 runs in the first inning or 4 runs in the first inning or however many he gave up. It felt like he gave up 10 in the first inning. He just had trouble getting out of that first inning. But when you have a guy like that and he proves to you by giving up those runs, you have to go in there and support him. You can't wait till 1 out in the 9th inning to go support the guy, to go try to get this one back. It just felt like they were checked out. It felt like the approach, they played right into what Wright State wanted to do. They just weren't. It just wasn't there. I think they lacked the focus, the drive they had to win the SEC tournament. And again, a lot of that was they get the number 1 overall seed. They felt like they had arrived. They felt like they were on top of the world, which they were for a minute, and they got humbled. Let's just be honest about it. They got humbled. And a lot of it was lack of focus. A lot of it was, some of it was, it wasn't all on the pitching staff. The hitting was terrible too. You can't get no hit through 7 innings in your opening game and expect you're going to do well. Like, you don't really come out of that. You don't really come out of that. And then you go against Louisville, and it's a lot of the same. Scatter some hits, not really all that great. And Louisville was not a team. I think if it had been a better team, they would have gotten blown out. It's very lackadaisical is kind of how I feel about this. Very lackadaisical, very just uninspired baseball. Truthfully, uninspired baseball. And I knew they were better than that. And the team that showed up in the 9th inning against Wright State, that's the hitting approach they should have had all along. They went up there dead focused because they didn't want to lose. It got turned, to top of the 9th inning. Here they come. Okay, we're not going to lose. All right. Now they turn it on. Too late. Too late. And what's and the most disappointing thing about this is that this should have been a series they should have just rolled right through, steamrolled. They should have steamrolled Wright State. They should have beaten, I don't know about steamrolling, but they should have beaten Louisville. And then however it would have shaken out in the final, they should have steamrolled that too. Like the way they were playing, the way they were pitching lights out. bullpen was on fire, and the bats did what they needed to do. And none of that happened. It's all up here. Mental focus. But anyway, they got a lot to work on. Got some questions to answer. Portal guys. Brody Johnson's going to be an absolute star. Austin Nye is going to be an absolute star. Whoever, I think this team has a really good nucleus of guys. If they can keep it together and add a couple pieces from the portal, continue to add power bats, get a dominant starting pitcher, I think this team has the makeup to do it. They just, at some point, they need to execute. And that's, that's where we're at on this. So, with that said, that's all I got. Good to see you guys. And we'll catch you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down, behave yourselves. Peace.